Hey folks, welcome. My name is Michele, and in this video I want to talk about contemporary classical music. In the last video I talked about how contemporary classical music might be distorted by an idea of progress and how the idea of progress has been predominant in musical academia. In this video I want to take a closer look at the institutions that shape contemporary classical music. I define contemporary classical music as a genre that is produced within the institutions, so it makes sense to take a closer look at the motivations of these institutions. What are these institutions selecting for? Why are they choosing a certain kind of music as opposed to another? Is progress the motivation behind it, or is there something else? Well, in this video, I want to argue that the idea of progress is actually an ideological framework. It is a sort of like a meta-narrative, something that can be used to interpret what's going on. But at the bottom, there might be something else that is actually influencing the decisions of institutions. We established how contemporary classical music is not a traditional market. In fact, one can argue that it's not a market at all. I would argue that it actually is, but with a different currency. The currency of contemporary classical music is not hard currency, but is prestige. So prestige is the key word of this video, as I think it explains a lot of the mechanism that lays behind the selection of certain kinds of music in the contemporary classical music world. 3 points I want to make about prestige. One is pretty easy point, and is that prestige is real. It's something that really does exist and does inform decisions. So if I post a composition on YouTube, I might get even thousands of views, but it will be nothing compared to a performance in a prestigious concert hall. The first one will give me 0 point when it comes to like applying for a job or getting a grant, while the second one will, even if it's attended very poorly. The second point is that prestige is a limited good, so it cannot be created at will, and it's a zero-sum game, meaning that if someone gets a prestigious recognition, someone else will not. The third point is that can only be given from the above, because only institutions that are prestigious can award and grant prestige onto other institutions or onto individuals. This third point brings us to the question, if prestigious institutions are the only ones entitled to grant recognition onto composers, then what is motivating them to choose certain music over others? I would say two main reasons. One is not to disperse prestige, meaning not to give it away willy-nilly. And the second motivation is that the musical institutions wants to keep and increase the prestige that it has. Which kind of music will the institution select for? Well, most likely, since he has a limited amount of investment, of prestige to invest, and since he wants that prestige to not diminish, at least not diminish its position, and hopefully to increase its position, it will give it to only certain amount of people, and those who are more likely to maintain or increase their prestige. The composers that will be more likely to increase the institution's prestigious position are those that will eventually reflect back that prestige onto the institution. So if a composer is recognized by the institution and then will eventually go on to accrue more prestige from other institutions, then the institution that has recognized this composer will increase its prestigious position in that it will claim that that certain composer was was firstly recognized by the institution. Also, it will not want that person to branch out and go out of the contemporary classical music market, because the prestige currency is only valid in the contemporary classical music market. Meaning, since music has different kinds of markets, the academic recognition that the composer has within the contemporary classical music scene will be dispersed when this composer goes to other kinds of market where his or her academic accomplishments will not count. It makes sense in this case to actually limit the selection of the musical institution to those composers that show a sense of loyalty to the contemporary classical music world. And how do you show a sense of loyalty and a willingness to stay within this marketplace? A simple way of showing it is to make sure that whatever music is produced by that composer will not be viable in any other market. So if the music is absolutely unsellable on, say, a film music market or a commercial market, then the composer will definitely be sticking with the contemporary classical music scene, and chances are that eventually might reflect back every accomplishment that he or she has made over on the institution. It makes sense then to have styles such as Lackermann's style of contemporary classical music, or Ferneyhough, who are arguably two of the most influential composers of today's contemporary classical music scene, at least last time I checked. This style of music is very characteristic. It can only be appreciated within the contemporary classical music world. Another point I want to make is that this might sound like it's a conspiracy of a musical institution to keep composers stuck in this world in this marketplace of prestige. But it doesn't need to be. I would say that it's more of a Darwinian mechanism, where institutions that are successful and will thrive are those that make good investments in prestige and recognition. And so over time, the institutions that will be more important are those that have made this quote unquote good investments. It's definitely not a monolithic behavior. It's not always the case where that institutions only select for contemporary classical music that is of a certain adversarial style. But I think there is something to say about this incentive that institutions have to promote contemporary classical music that is not allowed to be appreciated outside of its boundaries. So a criticism that one might have is that what musical institutions are doing here is actually preserving high art versus the low art of the marketplace, which is, this really comes down to the way you approach the problem and how you appreciate different styles. I would argue that, though, even if you do think that contemporary classical music is promoting high art traditionally is a way of inventing something that will eventually trickle down to the lower forms of art. And over the last 50 years, the styles that have been promoted by contemporary classical music have hardly trickled down to any other kinds of art. I think approaching contemporary classical music, analyzing what it has produced from a more Machiavellian point of view, where we look at institutions and see what they are doing in terms of not just an abstract problem as progress, but as a system of incentives where institutions are competing to survive and to increase their position, might be useful, and maybe not in the exact terms that I made, but I encourage the young composers to also think a little more realistically of what's going on in this world. I hope this was interesting, and if not a bit controversial. I always appreciate comments and the discussion that these videos create. I will be keep thinking about this and trying to answering your questions if you have any. If you enjoyed this video, do subscribe and like it. And until the next time, take care.